Play California Love.
Okay, California Love by Tupac Shakur. Here it is on Spotify.
Please. There it is. Okay. Okay. What's going on, y'all? California. Cashmere, California. Yeah. Cashmere. I know. All right, I ain't gonna party too much. I'm not gonna party too much this morning. I just wanted to get us started, get the juices flowing while everybody walks in. Get your seats, get your ticket stamped because the train is leaving soon. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Pod is Good podcast. I am your host, Cashmere, California. Pod is good. And all the time, if you know, you know. If you don't, you'll learn. Welcome back. This is episode 12. Episode 12 of the Pod is Good podcast. Hello. Greetings. How's everybody doing out there? How we feeling? How are we feeling? I know we've had some very interesting dialogue up to this point. Episodes 1 through 11 already have had a lot of diversity. Is probably the best way to describe it. I mean, we've talked everything from real estate markets to uh, conservative values to U.S. album releases in London to let's see. I just want to add one more to the history of the Shaolin martial arts. Come on. We've been all over. We've been all over, and I'm hoping y'all have been entertained. I'm hoping you had a good time, enjoying the guest here. If you are, please subscribe to the channel, support the channel, share it with somebody else you feel like may enjoy it. And other than that, sit back, relax. Whatever you're doing, you at work right now, got the headphones on, they don't know what you're listening to, just chill out. Try not to make too many facial expressions or laugh because, I'm funny. So try not to laugh out loud and, get fired. Or if you in the middle of a project, you out there on construction, hey, turn it up, get to work, zone out with us, because I guarantee, like every other episode of Pod is Good, you will learn something, you will be motivated by something, and overall, hopefully, you'll be entertained. My guest today is a really, really, really good friend of mine. You know how a lot of times when you look at the friends around you, they might date back to you worked with them, or you went to school with them, or you knew them, you guys grew up together. Like there's usually like just a few background stories that you have with most of your friends. They kind of group into work, school, grew up, lived next to, you know, girlfriend or wife's friend, something usually right up in there. This next guy, our story is completely different. Completely different. We just met camping one day, just happened to be at the same campsite on the same weekend, literally right next to each other. And immediately we started helping each other. We clicked and we've been friends ever since. So, ladies and gentlemen, coming to the studio, my man, James, the investment shark. James, how you doing today, bro?
I'm good, man. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Great.
It's
Thank you. The
good.
audio is perfect.
Appreciate the introduction. It's good to see you.
Of course, man. I feel like we have one of the most interesting, like, how'd you become friends stories that then has developed into, Bible studies together. It's developed into, families talking together, wives bonding. Like it's flourished into a friendship and a bond that most people, wouldn't expect from such such an unlikely introduction.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, interesting way to encounter each other, but man, it's been great.
Right.
And It's crazy how much or how many people you can meet and not bond with, but just randomly out of nowhere you have a good
Random,
connection with someone.
random. I'll never forget that because it was, we were moving benches around, the little bench that was in front, and you had a daughter that was around the same age as my daughter. So, you're doing the dad thing. It's like you're trying to set up, but then you're also trying to look out and watch. And then, your wife, obviously, she's handling things, and I'm doing the same thing with my clan. And it's like, but we noticed each other. It's like, okay, I see another dad, another husband over there handling it. And
Yeah,
it just seemed like there was just a hey, can you help me with? Oh yeah, I got you. If you need some help, let me know. Okay, we'll be over here and come knock if you need. And boom,
yeah.
it
I
was
think
off to the
what's
races.
yeah, I think what's craziest is we were literally facing each other. That campsite was facing each other, and we were like
Right,
basically sharing the site, which was awesome.
right. Which that's a good point. I haven't thought about that before. That like that's for anyone that actually goes to campsites. That that's not normal.
No,
Normally, your campsite, you hook up, everyone hooks up on one side, and you set up your entertainment area on the opposite side. So you end
yeah,
up your entertainment area ends up facing the next person's setup side.
yeah,
But you're right. For us, we happen to be both our doors were facing each other.
yeah. It's as you know, when we met, we were on a trip across the country in our RV,
Right.
and that was the only time we stayed in a place like that. So it's kind of
Mm,
divine meeting, I guess, if
yeah.
you will.
Yeah. Absolutely it was. Absolutely it was. And to start it off, the opening moments of our friendship that very weekend, we watched church together.
Yeah,
And I
that's
know
right.
I know for you that had to kind of be like, I don't know if he's gonna want to do this because you invited us. We came to your RV to watch church, but I mean, I'm pretty sure, like you said, the divine energy made you feel like I feel like he's gonna be okay. I feel like they're gonna be into this, and
Yeah,
we absolutely were, and that was incredible.
yeah. I mean, my wife pushed me to do it, but the crazy thing is the internet was kind of spotty out there,
Yeah,
and just for that time, it was like perfect.
perfect,
No cutting on and off. So
right. And this is during
fine.
COVID time.
Yeah,
To really put a stamp on all of this. This sounds like, back in the day when everybody, just talked and was around each other and 6 feet wasn't an issue. But
yeah,
this happened in the midst of the COVID pandemic, which is probably why you were on that trip and why we were out there. You're trying to kind of be out and away from people, and lo and behold, you're in someone else's RV watching church service in an arm's throw of them. Only met them probably within the last 72 hours, but
yeah,
that there's like a comfort and a protection, in this moment. That's
yeah.
crazy.
Absolutely, man. All the kids were there. It was great.
That's crazy. So how you been, man? How's everything been going?
It's been good. Things have been good, actually. I know we talked probably, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
And since then, things have gone extremely better.
Oh wow, that's
So
awesome.
it's been good. I know that's not everyone's story right now, but for us right now, that's where it's at. So it's all been good.
But that's always good. Even if it's not your story, it's great to hear someone else, going through a great time to remind you, like, okay, there's a chance. It's not like everything's terrible. The whole world
Yeah,
isn't falling apart. There is good, there is productivity, there is, gain out there. I just got to
yeah.
keep working hard and be patient for my time.
Oh yeah, man. There's
Yeah,
valleys and peaks. I mean, we're still in the valley, but we're close to that mountain. I can see it.
right.
So
Got a fly that's flying around in my studio, trying to get on camera.
yeah,
Um, All right, so I told you that the core of the show is always going to be music, right? It's always going to be back to hip hop because that is my launching point into entertainment, if you will. And I know you
hmm
have some roots in hip hop too,
yeah,
some roots in the music world. And
yeah.
so before we get into the financial stuff, I need people to know the cool factor of James because if you didn't know, you're about to know. First, let's start with this. And then we'll get into, some of the some of the other parts of your background. I would like to know, and I'm putting you on the spot. Top 5. Your top 5 rap artists of all time.
Oh, top 5. All
And
right.
if you need to squeeze it down to like a certain era or whatever you got to do, because I know that's a tough question for some people. They're like, I can't compare, Drake and Kool Moe Dee. Like, I get that. So
Yeah.
whatever first comes to your heart, what is your top 5 rap artist?
All right, top 5. Number 1, Nas.
Nas.
Number 2, Kendrick Lamar. Sorry, I'm. They're all kind of bouncing around eras.
Okay.
Number 3, Jay-Z. Number 4, man, I gotta throw Tupac in there.
Okay.
And number 5, I'd say Eminem.
Okay. I don't know if y'all heard that. I don't know what you expected when you look at James. I don't know what top 5 you expected to hear, but that top 5 it proves my point. You like some people with a little lyricism to them. You like some depth.
Yeah, man. I grew up. So I grew up in foster care in East Oakland, and
Shout out
just
to East
turned
Oakland.
on to a lot of music real young.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting because when I was put in foster care when I was 6, and I used to always listen to rap music on the radio in my real mom's car, and her husband or boyfriend at the time hated it. He only listened to like rock. So whenever he'd catch me listening to it, he would just drill into me. And it was kind of interesting because, I was put in foster care when we were 6, lived in East Oakland.
Right.
And from there forward, I just listened to hip hop music, and it was kind of like a solace. Like, you listen to these individuals' stories, and I mean, that's what it is. It's poetry, life. Obviously nowadays some of it's fake, but it used to not in the 90s. I mean, that stuff, for the most part, they were living it.
Yeah.
And some of it was, just stuff for show. But you kind of compare your life to theirs and say, man, I can see you, a bit, and it would resonate with me a bit. And a lot of it too is, it's conscious. I like the conscious rap in a way, where it's like, not everything is always about, drugs, weapons, women, and and like on the streets, right? Like,
Right.
there's
The
some
usual
stuff that,
suspects.
right. It's like there's stuff that can kind of elevate you, and you can learn from people's experiences too. I mean, hopefully we all try to do that.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of what drew me to it. And then also too, I mean, man, like I mean, I love all music. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I played the trumpet. I played 5 different instruments in jazz band, in high school, and I played through grade school and stuff. And later on in high school, but at the same time, I was trying to produce little rap artists in my dad's studio. So just
Hold on, is this the same dad that was drilling into you for putting it on, or this is different?
No, different dad. So I was
Okay.
adopted. I was adopted when I was 15.
Gotcha.
And my adopted dad, his name was Henry Anadon, and he was in a band in the 70s called the Ninth Creation, and they were from Stockton, played around all the Bay Area.
Yeah.
They got signed to Sony, but they ended up shelving them. So at the time, what they would do is they'd make all the records, but they'd put you on the shelf, and then they wouldn't allow you to blow up all at once. They'd play you in one area and then wait a few months. Then you kind of like blow up in different areas all over.
Yeah.
At different times. And so they sounded at the time, they sounded too much like some of the bands that are out there, like Tower of Power, and those type of funk, 1970s funk bands.
Yeah.
And so, but in any respect, my dad wrote like 80% of the songs on all their albums, and they had quite a bit. I don't remember exactly how many. You can look it up on discography.com. He has got all of his albums that he created, but also has all the offshoots, like people who sampled his music. So like his music
name?
was.
You say Henry Anadon?
Henry Anadon, yeah, on discography. And he sampled, or his music was sampled on movies like the movie Kids. At the end, it was sampled in a movie called Shooting Fish, and then from there, or before that though, it was sampled by like Pete Rocks and CL Smooth. It was sampled by Quasimodo most recently.
Sheesh.
It was sampled by as well too. People Under the Stairs, a lot of '90s New York scene hip hop artists, which is at the time they were using the MPC. You know, they were putting a
Yep.
record on and taking bits and pieces and
Taking
just putting
pieces.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, putting them together like that, which was kind of the deal. And so it's kind of funny. So he's got a we have a gold record from Third Base. So they sampled on he was
Search.
sampled on yeah, MC Serge on Derelicts of Dialect, that album, and in a
Wow.
couple different songs. And so they ended up yeah, there he is right there. He's passed away since
Yeah, I see. I
as you
see.
see
It's
2011.
2011.
Yeah, but if you go
Wow.
down, you can see
Can you see that?
uh
Okay.
yeah, I see it. It's on there. Yeah. Right Kind Records, Spin It Back. Yeah. Bubblegum was like their biggest album in 1975. And that's the one that's been sampled the most.
Wow. Oh, this one right
That was
here.
with Right Track. Yeah, there's Bubblegum. And then you
Wow.
can see, I haven't been on this website in a while, but you can see where, there you go. Falling in Love was a big one. Def Jam sampled it there. Pop Goes the Weasel, 91. Derelicts of Dialect.
Crazy.
Yeah, Pete Rock, there you go.
Between a
Wrong
rock
Side
and
of
a
the
hard
Track.
place.
Reaching for the Top. That one was a good album too. He ended up leaving the band. They were going to do a Japanese tour in the late '70s, a Japan tour, and his parents got sick, so he ended up leaving the band at that point. But and then they still their whole thing was staying like kind of true to funk. I actually remember a very funny story. My dad said in the late '70s, this guy came and he wanted to get in the group, but he wanted to rap.
Huh.
And my dad was laughing because everyone was just like, "Oh, people don't want to hear that," you know. And it was the silliest thing because it could have elevated the band, but they
Right,
just
right.
they just didn't do it. But
They didn't
anyways,
have a vision.
yeah. But the cool thing is we had a full studio, sample machines, everything in our house.
Nice.
And during the summers, my dad would just like lock us in there and we would record as a family or as friends, or maybe we would just make beats together just for fun,
That is
and
awesome.
yeah,
Yo, that is awesome.
it was one of the best things, teach you how to
Absolutely.
run through all that stuff. And as we used to use like a I don't know if anyone has even heard of this on this, but an ADAT recorder. It
Oh
was
yeah.
basically a tape, and it had 8 tracks, and you could record up to 16 because you could
Yeah.
split them.
Yeah.
But we had 8 tracks, and we were originally using that for a long time, and then finally went to like Cubase, to the computer, and hooking all that stuff. So that was always fun, like getting in there and teaching my dad all the new technology and learning it myself. And just recording fun stuff with my friends. I mean, even down to the point where like pen tapping. You would record pen tapping on like a stool and put that in a
Oh yeah.
beat or something.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Get in there and tweak it, make it sound completely different, beef it up or EQ it and
yeah, it was so much fun, man.
right.
And I haven't been in the studio or recorded anything in quite some time, probably in at least 10 years, just because kind of kids and career and stuff is taken over. And
Of course.
still play the guitar a bit, but pretty much that's all I have to play. But both of my brothers have full recording studios, or my adopted brothers. They record with themselves all the time. Like their children play different instruments and all that stuff. So
It's
it's
great that
still in the family.
yeah, it's great that he put that in you. It's funny because my guest yesterday, SR, was talking about. We had a good conversation, kind of talking about what um, moving to LA with your music as you're developing it can kind of do for you as an artist, because it turns all of it into like this has to work and this has to work and this has to work, and it also puts in the psyche of your appreciation for it is now based in a world of does the next person like it? Does
Yeah.
this sound like a hit? What do you all think of it? It's not even about me anymore or
Yeah.
my truth or what it feels like to me. It's like, you don't like it, I don't like it. On to the next thing. And so to hear, and so that was something that he had as well, was when he first started, his dad got him a guitar very early, and he was, I gotta stop putting my hand in front of my face. Got him a guitar very early, and he used to just play, like just be up at 4 a.m. just writing songs, playing and playing. I mean, and he's an incredible guitarist now. Like he's um, played on songs that I've done. He's been at events that I've booked and performed. I mean, he's like a phenomenal talent. So that's really cool to hear that, even though I guess the flip side of doing music for enjoyment, you show, is that even if you're not trying to pursue it later on in life, it still gives you something.
Yeah.
It still gives you something, and like to hear that you guys are still, playing or recording or just like making music. It's like there's something fundamentally just engaging and beautiful about music, that there's a reason why tribes used to just sit around and just make music for
Yeah.
hours on end, like just
Yeah.
because.
I think what's interesting, and might be a good segue, but so I love music and I love making it. That was always fun. But so when I was 13 or 14, I was at a bookstore.
Mhm.
It was in the mall. It was probably, I don't know, one of the larger ones that's probably not around anymore. But they had a book, is like how to start a record label.
Huh.
And I was like, hey, I got a studio. I'm 14. I know what I'm doing,
You
And,
you're the exact you're the exact age, or right in the same I think he might have said 15, that he was when he went and told his mom. He said, because he had a band, and he was like, we're gonna buy a bus
yeah.
for $1,000 that somebody, I think a guy from the circus that was using it for the circus, is selling. And his mom was like, well, you're not doing that. It sounds like you're in the same age. Okay, so 14-year-old James decides, I'm
Yeah.
about to start my own Def Jam. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to start a record label. And so I was going through it with my dad. My dad kind of thought it was like, he's just a kid, like what's he gonna do about it? And then I started bringing like bands into the studio. My dad was kind of like, you're bringing all these people to the house, to record and stuff. But I was like super driven to do it. It didn't really go anywhere, because the problem is it wasn't necessarily my drive. It was more along the lines, well, number one, I didn't know what I was doing. I was
Right.
reading a book thinking I knew what I was doing. And number two, it's hard to kind of, when you have people together, it's hard to get them motivated to do something unless they're already motivated to do it.
Oh, that's a
And I
fact.
didn't really fully understand that. I was like, I have all these people who have this talent, and they were more in it for whatever purposes, right?
Got you.
And so, but anyways, that was kind of my segue into understanding like the business world per se, at least moving into that side. And which is when I started really understanding how businesses run, and how to message them, or how to look at them, and understand who they are and why they exist and what they do.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I kind of, that's really what kind of pulled me away from the kind of the music side, uh,
Mm,
and pushed me to where I am today. I mean, I have other businesses that I helped start and work through that were pretty much all failures, right, up until this point.
right.
But it was all learning lesson for me. So
Yeah.
I did move away from the music, but it was really the first thing that pushed me into what I do today. Sorry to segue away from the music side, but it
Well,
was
hold on,
it,
hold
you
on.
know
Before you segue, so you're touching on a similar angle that we kind of talked about yesterday. But what I think, one thing that's very interesting is that you kind of jumped in on more of the business side, and so you
Yeah.
were able to see the business from an early age, and then decide, yeah, this ain't really for me. Whereas, and because it wasn't so personal to you, it was a lot easier for you to disengage. Whereas,
Yeah.
um, you know, the, our other conversation with SR in episode 11 was it's a lot harder for an artist because emotionally you're invested,
Yeah.
and you feel like you kind of just have to ride the wave. Like you feel like the issue is you. I think that's a good thing about it. I mean, a good point, a good difference point that I'm hearing is like you heard that the issue wasn't you, the issue was this industry. The issue
Yeah.
is the people that you're coming in contact with. For the artist, it's like, oh, the issue's me. I don't know something yet. I
Yeah.
haven't adjusted yet. I haven't developed this thing that they're looking for. So I need to work on me. And at the end of the day, it's like, no, you're probably good. It's
Yeah.
probably them.
You know what's crazy is that that you watched that Kanye West his documentary, right? That his buddy did. And what was actually, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that stood out to me, but one of the things that stood out to me, because you were talking earlier, like, oh, is this song going to be a hit? How do other people think about it? And he was not putting some music out for 4 or 5 years, and then it was a hit 5 years later. After he actually put out. I mean, he had beats just galore and songs ready to go for years before he put them out, and then they were hits. I mean, obviously he's got a gift, and there's no doubt about that. And
Right.
there's a lot of people out there with gifts like that. But it's just crazy. It's just crazy to me to think that, like, especially as an artist, they can tend to be very not their own worst enemy, but in a way just so critical of themselves that they end up something that's really good is you hear every little thing that's wrong with it. You hear everything, and then you
Right.
compare it, and it's not going to be as good as this, or that type of thing.
Exactly.
And so you end up never either putting it out, or you just like talk yourself out of things or whatever it is. And so that's kind of like where I wanted to be in this space is kind of be that sounding board and say, hey, we can do this. Okay, maybe this doesn't work, but the next thing may, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And so I kind of came from that side of it, and
Yeah.
I figured, hey, look, I have the ability to do that, and I love business, and I want to figure this stuff out. So why don't I go into that space? And
Yeah.
then obviously I'm
Yeah.
no longer in that, but and there's a lot of things that I've walked away from that I kind of think back now that I'm in my mid 30s. Say, man, if I really just kept going at that, what would life look like?
Right.
So, but
Right.
it's all good.
Always feels like you'll never know. Right. It
Yeah.
always feels like you'll never know, because it's true. Like everything requires a certain level of consistency.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, the consistency, what's the old thing where they say, like, if you hit a wall so many times with so much force, like it has to fall eventually, or like the walls of Jericho, or if or like water, how a drop of water can put a dent in concrete.
Yeah.
After so much time, it's like it has to give. And
Yeah.
but yeah, consistency is a big thing. And it sounds like, because you were coming at it from such a genuine place and a love of the music, that if you didn't let it contaminate you, which is the hardest part, that
Yeah.
you probably would have built. I mean, you have, great character, and your intentions are good, and you have a strong belief and great work ethic. So I have no doubt that you could definitely have your own so def right now, and we'd be having a whole
So
different conversation about, so how does it feel to have all those plaques behind
yeah.
you on the wall?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I have to add something to that too. Kind of set the stage a little bit. So when this was going on at the same time, uh, obviously in the Central Valley, close to the Bay Area, you had the pack that was like pretty hot at the time. Got my Vans on, but they looked like sneakers, and I
Yeah.
knew his little brother. We were pretty good friends. His name's
Mm,
Antonio. He went by Young OT.
okay.
And then also at the same time, my friend from high school, her name's Dev. She did that "Fly Like a G6" song. It was like coming out
Ah,
after that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I
yeah.
was like, dude, we're gonna make a hit. I'm gonna make a hit, and these are my friends.
Right.
Like
You
they
got
can
hit
do it,
makers
I
with
can do
you.
it. And apparently I couldn't do it. So
So hold on. You can't just dump us off like that. So how
yeah,
did that not materialize? You got two friends, basically people in your circle that that already have hits out, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And so they're already making noise, and then you have what's the next step?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened?
Then, honestly, a lot of life things happened, to be honest with you.
Mm,
And it really pulled me away from there. I mean, I still wanted to do it, but I ended up moving I moved to Sacramento for a little bit and moved to Costa Mesa
okay.
to work with a friend of mine out there. And a few things didn't work out, and I was kind of getting that business space essentially, and which was fine. And I mean, I guess it's just like the journey and the road.
Yeah.
So it just took me away from it. Like I lost interest over time,
Yeah.
and
And
also too, it was hard to find somebody that I could, put in that space as well. So, and I had another dabble in the music scene. I had some friends who were DJs. They were like EDM DJs.
yeah.
We would put on shows and stuff like at the local bowling alley in Manteca, or like
Okay.
wherever we could.
So like out towards the Bay Area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it was fun, but that's pretty much all it was, and things kind of broke up there too. And then I ended up moving out of the town, and out of Antigua, and I went to the Bay Area and moved to San Francisco, and I
Mm,
wanted to get into school, and I went into school as a film major, and a videography major, and was doing that for a while. But I just did that because I knew I loved videography, but I wasn't really I wasn't really not super excited about it, but I wasn't like thrilled to be a videographer, if you will. After
mm,
I took a couple classes, you realize how difficult it is to break into any industry in there.
yeah, that's true.
And so I ended up, kind of going back to where I am, in this place now. I took a economics course, which is part of what you have to do,
Yeah.
econ one or whatever. And I didn't buy the book, and I got an A, and I was like, hey, I actually understand this. This is something I get.
All right.
And
There might be something there. There might be
yeah,
something.
yeah, I changed my major to finance and economics, and the rest is history.
I do want. I know this is a big jump back, but the fact that you named Nas first, and you also said that you grew up in East Oakland, I have to understand how
Yeah.
does a kid from East Oakland not get more attached to the Too Shorts, the Mac Dre's, the who else is out? Forgetting his name. Drew
The loon.
Down,
Yeah.
um, the
Wasn't the
Click,
loonies there?
the
Yeah.
Loonies,
Yeah.
even
I did.
even going back to like Far Side, like
Yeah.
you got attached to Nas. Who introduced you to Nas?
Actually, a friend of mine did. It's kind of funny. So I mean, I definitely listen to all of them, right?
Right.
Yeah, Too Short. What's his name that owns Fat Burger? His name his rap name is skipping my memory right now, but
He owns Fat Burger? That's dope.
yeah, or he owns a bunch
40?
of fat E40, yeah, a bunch of
Okay.
Fat Burgers, yeah. Obviously they were big hits at the time out there, and of course I
Absolutely.
listened to them, but so I got introduced to Nas by a friend of mine early on, and I didn't see any East Coast, West Coast rap. You know how that was kind of going on at some point.
Yeah, later on.
I,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I was too young or I just didn't understand it, but I kind of started catching on to that. But I was like, this is. It didn't really bother me. I just liked the good music, and it was different. Both sides were different, so everyone
Yeah.
had good music to me. It was just different, and
Right.
that's all I
Right.
saw it as. But I just really liked the way that he rapped, man. Like it's especially at that time it was transformational. Even in New York, in the East it was transformational, and then you hear stuff like that, in the West, and you're like, and then you hear West. I'm sure people in the East were like, "Whoa, what's going on in the West? This is
Yeah.
way different,"
Yeah.
So for me,
Yeah.
it was just like taking, pieces off of like a, charcuterie board or something. It was everything kind of just worked for me, right?
Great analogy. The hip hop charcuterie board. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
you get a little bit of Nas, a little bit of Pac, and then at one point, Andre 3000 gets on stage and says the South got something to say, and then you add a
Yeah,
little, little
yeah,
South, and yeah.
yeah, and
That's dope.
it's all been good too. I think really what it comes down to is like music will evoke an emotion or it'll hit you somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's emotional or maybe mentally, and so it really all is. That's all I was looking for. at the time. I was, you know, I was a young kid, put in foster care. I was literally the like only white kid, you know,
Mm,
and so, which was fine. I mean, like nobody treated me any different, and I didn't see any different when I was younger too, you
right.
know. And so we'd go to like, you know, we'd play at the YMCA or something, and you know, I was actually fairly good at basketball, so that was like kind of a help, right? And it was all fun, you know, when you're kids. And so, but like I kind of knew my life was different than a lot of other people's. Obviously, I was in foster care with other kids in foster care, so it's not
Yeah.
fair to say that my life was different than theirs, right?
Obviously. Yeah. Yeah.
But and they, you know, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff we don't even have to bring up, but the thing is like it was more along the lines of like trying to understand who I could be or who I was. I
Hmm.
think I think a lot of it is too is like there's one way you can go. You can go the good way or you can go the bad way. And luckily I went the good way. I know I have friends who didn't go the good way, and unfortunately they're either not here or, you know, maybe they're in prison or something.
Yeah.
But I think just even learning from some of the songs that you heard in certain ways, like, I don't want to be like that, or I do, or how
Mm,
that's such a good way to look at life, you know. And it's you're kind of learning from poets in a way of like street poets, you know, people who
yeah.
are
Yeah.
giving you the poetry of life in a way. And I mean, you know, in some respects, it was a way to teach you, like, you know, I mean, I didn't have father figures or mother figures and stuff growing up outside of. I mean, I lived in a lot of group homes when I was in foster care, so it was just kids running around, kind of like Lord of the Flies. But anyways, in those respects, I mean, that's really why I hung on to rap music, hip hop music, from all over the place. You know, it really didn't matter to me. It just mattered that that what you said was good. And even to this day, I
Hmm.
mean, I don't get me wrong, I like a good beat. You know, I'll listen to like some of the new music
Yeah.
uh, often, but I actually always go back to something I know. You know, like
Yeah.
Nas or whatever
Yeah.
it is. You know, that I can get some real good content from.
Yeah. But you know, music has that way of like it almost seems like fashion. Like music is similar to fashion. There's a certain identity to it.
Yeah,
And so the era in your life or the sub part of your life that you connected with music the most or you connected with fashion the most will usually be the part that you carry forever.
yeah,
It's like it's
yeah,
gonna be hard for you might try new things, like you said, you listen to new artists, you might try a new outfit on, but there's gonna be a certain look that and you probably developed that look at a certain time where your look actually meant something, whether it's because of a job or because of a girl or whatever the case was performing, that you
yeah,
just that's you.
yeah.
Music does that same thing. It's like it timestamps. Like all you gotta do is play somebody's playlist, and you're like, okay, so you got into music around mid '90s. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. If you would have said name your top six, I probably would have put Big L there at the bottom of the list too. But the problem is you know, it's like
Woo!
I was put
That's
into
the story.
I was given a tape of his when I was probably eight, maybe 8 years
Wow.
old or something. Or it
Wow.
wasn't given to me. It was like one of the kids let me
Yeah,
listen
yeah.
to it in his. We had a walk a
Yeah,
Walkman with, you know, those crappy headphones on it. So you had to like listen to it at night, you know, so no one else was here.
yeah. With the metal
Yeah,
band.
yeah, a little foam. There wasn't even foam on them anymore.
All right, all right.
But but you know, one thing about Big L was like that was kind of like this point in my life where it was like you could be a little more aggressive too, you know.
Mm,
And that
yeah,
was kind of around the 8 year old, and that was like it was a journey. Music was a journey for me to like kind of tell me who I could be. There's so many different personalities in this world, and listen to all these personalities and kind of help it build you to who you want to be. And I mean,
right.
don't get me wrong, there's been people in my life to help do that too, but that was the first of it. And unfortunately, Big L didn't have much to put out,
Yeah,
which
that's
I'm sad
tragic.
about.
Tragic.
But
Such a talent. If
yeah,
y'all don't know
oh my
anybody listen, if
gosh,
you've never heard of Big L, go find it. Go
oh my
find it.
god,
Shout out to
yeah,
New York. I can't remember which borough. I feel like he was from Brooklyn or Harlem, but
yeah.
um
Queens, no, not Queensbridge. Sorry.
I can't remember. I can't remember. I'm not doing him justice right now, but go. What was that joint?
Man,
It was the alphabet or something.
yeah,
What was it called?
yeah.
Um
The Ebonics or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is the Ebonic.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. Big L was on it before
And
before
we weren't
E40
calling.
was on it.
Yeah, yeah, and we weren't calling cops Jakes out here at the time, so
Right.
it was interesting to just hear how they spoke, their lingo, the way that they, and that's crazy about like about you know lingo, right? Our the way we vocalize things is
Yeah.
it's different across the world, but we always have like slang that you say one word and it means so much.
Right. Right. That's so
and
true.
and there's a lot of that in hip hop, and
Ton of
which
that.
was
And it feels like it changes every few years. Every 5 to 10 years, that don't even mean that no more. What are you talking about?
yeah, like that no cap thing, like no cap,
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
no lie. And when I was a kid, when you said cap, it was like they were joking on you, or
Right. Right. Like
capping on you.
you're right. Capping back in the day and no cap today, two completely different things.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm
But what's funny though is when I looked at the background of no cap, it actually comes from that,
really,
which is weird. So the idea of no cap came from like the capping and jonesing, because remember,
got
capping
it.
and jonesing, you're kind of making up things about the person.
Yeah.
So it was the idea of you're making up something. So then that turned into no cap.
No
I'm
make.
not making this up.
That's so
It's
good.
crazy how it got repurposed like that.
I should have looked that up. I did not catch that, but that's good. I'm glad you explained that to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that threw me off because for a while I was like, because you'll hear, if you hear a new term, a new ebonics or new slang term that you haven't heard before, you can hear it the first 3 or 4 times and still not get it.
Yeah.
Like it'll take like, oh, my guy Roger Drakes that was on here, say less. So he was talking to a guy. This is so funny. So me and him are talking, and I said, "Say less," and he was like, what does that mean?" And I was like, "Oh, it means like I get what you're saying. You don't have to say anymore. Like I got it. Like you ain't got to say nothing else. I got you." And he was like, "Oh," he was like, "The only other time I heard somebody say that, I was talking to this kid, is like a young kid, in North Hollywood somewhere, and I don't know what the conversation was about, but somewhere towards the end of the conversation, the kid said, 'Say less,' and he got offended. He
Yeah.
felt like it was like him saying like, 'Shut up!' Like
Yeah.
I don't need to hear nothing else you got to say. Like just shut up."
It's kind of how I took it when you said it,
So he
like
was,
an offensive way.
so he thought, so then when he heard it from me, he knows, well, Cash is not gonna say it like that, so it must mean something different. So then he was like, "Oh," this whole time I was like, "Man, that kid is just so disrespectful." Like I almost wanted to slap him upside his head. Like, who are you talking to?
That's funny, man.
But that's how slang is, man. It's like a weird thing. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, do you remember any Bay Area slang that stands out to you? Because
Man.
E40 E40 kind of took it to another level with, from the soil. I'm just, lacing their tennis shoes, and you listen to
Yeah.
E40, you'd be like, I don't know what he's talking
Yeah.
about. Do
Yeah.
you remember any that stood out to you?
Yeah, man. Like the turf, is in Oakland.
Turf, yeah,
Jug, like, got it on the cheap. Cap,
of course.
I'm digging deep, man, but it's been so long. It's been so long. I'm trying to remember.
Do you remember Juke?
Yo, yeah, you got juked.
You got Juke. Like I don't know
I
if
do
that was
remember.
like I don't know if that was a regional thing or if everybody said that, but I
Yeah.
remember that, like, oh, he got juked. Just like,
Yeah. I do remember that. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. It's like you playing football or soccer or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I remember
Now
that.
they say like, oh, the ankle breaker or something. Like it's
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah.
Um, so I know you kind of touched on it. I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but I know we've talked personally about you and your sister
Yeah.
being in the foster system, and that's an area that I feel like people kind of choose when and when not to really pay attention to it,
Yeah.
or they give it too much energy. So it's kind of like almost like the forgotten pieces of our society. You kind of forget how many kids are in that, or how many adults that you are looking at or around nowadays that came from that. So
Yeah.
it, any further light you want to speak on just the foster system or stories or anything?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the foster system's changed quite a bit in California now. When I was in the foster care system, I started off with the state, and they had this mandate where you weren't allowed as a foster kid to stay at a house longer than 6 months, or in any place longer than 6 months, because they thought that you would get attached.
Mm,
And so it was just pretty. That was kind of a brutal thing because 6 months in, and you didn't know what day it was. You would just be at school or something. You'd come out, and they'd have all your stuff in a trash bags in the back of the car, and they'd take you to a new house. And that
shoot.
changed as I got older, um, later on. And actually, I don't know if that changed in the foster system in California, but what did change is I was put into a different foster system, and I'm blanking on the name of it right now.
Mhm.
It comes to my mind every once in a while, but it was more of a Christian organization
Okay.
opposed to what the state offered,
Hmm.
and so they were a little bit different on what they believed was to be real. But going through the state system is hard. And I don't want to talk ill about any foster parent, but when I was going through it, what they would do is they would put so just for instance, one of the places I lived, they had the two older people who were the foster parents of the group home.
Hmm.
They had like their living quarters were in the basement of this house, and this was in Oakland, over by the hill, over by the zoo.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so they had those 3-story or split level houses and whatever.
Yep.
And so they would live down there, and their kids would take care of us. And I mean, obviously we had
Interesting.
food we needed and all that stuff. I don't remember a ton about it, but it just kind of goes to show you, it's like more of like a business sometimes than it is, trying to help people. And I would never talk ill about any foster parent, because there's some good ones out there. And of course, like anything, there's some bad ones, right?
Yeah.
But so those are difficult situations. I know my sister went through some pretty tough periods, and I
And
won't
now,
get
real
into
real
them.
quick, real quick, because in the chat, Mama Wolf says that sounds very traumatic. I'm assuming she's talking about the moving the kids around
Yeah,
every few months and popping up with the bags. Like, was there
yeah.
any level of they at least tried to keep them in the same school district, or like certain or could you end up in a completely different, like if you were in Oakland, you could be in San Jose tomorrow? Was it like that?
So I mainly stayed around Oakland, but not the same school district for a while.
Mm,
And then I'm not sure who came up with that idea. It definitely was kind of traumatic. I mean, you get your clothes in a bag. Most of the time you didn't have all your stuff, and then you
right.
just show up at this new house, and it's like new people, new smells, new bed, just kind of
Wow.
weird, new kids sometimes. So
Wow.
and there was, I mean, with group homes, it's kind of like jail in a way. I mean, I never stayed at some of those like more like designated group homes. Like there's straight up group homes at jail premises for kids, and they didn't do anything bad, but I was in more like they were homes, but big homes with lots of kids in them.
Hold on. You
And
said there are group homes at jails?
yeah, yeah. So like county, like where it's like county buildings and stuff. Like
Uh-huh.
usually, and there's one in Stockton. I'm referring to one that's in the Stockton area at the county jail. And there's a certain lady's name, I can't remember what it is, but they're like group homes for children. And there's a lot of kids in there, man, like a lot. And they have the doors like kind of locked, like to get outside. It looks like you'd be in almost in a jail. I mean, it's a little nicer. They got carpet, and it's not metal tables with them bolted down or anything, but
Jeez.
for the most part, it's on the same property, and it's just not a great environment. You get your own room and stuff, but you got checks in your room. It's crazy.
Wow.
You make sure you're going to school, and they bus you all to school and stuff. It's just crazy. But the places I stayed were in smaller homes, just homes in general.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, there's politics in it too. And so when you're young, you know, things are tough. When you get a little older, they get a little easier. But for me,
Of
I
course.
pretty much stayed around in the Hayward, Oakland area for a while. And then they ended up moving us to, when I moved into the new foster agency, Families First. That was the name of it. Families First just
Mm,
came to mind. When I moved from that foster agency into Families First, they moved me out to Lathrop, which was where our first home was, and we actually lived with them for a long time. So after that, I didn't move around
mm,
much, but we lived there with this family for a long time. They got to the point where they were just kind of getting older and didn't want to foster anymore. It's just maybe taking a toll on them. I don't know. But my this is an interesting story. So I was in third grade,
mhm.
and we used to have eighth graders come and they do a buddy thing with third graders and just help us do projects and math or whatever it was. It was, I don't know if maybe it was for like a specific class for them or something.
Yeah.
But they would come and they would sit with us and help us with these things. Just so happens that that kid who'd come in, his name's David Anadon, who just so happens to be my adopted brother. But my sister and his sister were actually really good friends. My sister, I believe, was probably seventh grade at the time, or
Mm.
maybe sixth grade or something at the time. And my sister told her, "Hey, we're gonna have to move. We're not sure exactly where we're going," but they kind of at this time they told us, "Oh, we're getting you guys ready to move." And she went to her parents and said, "Hey, look, you know, my friends are gonna have to move, but would you guys want to be foster parents and like bring them in because we don't want them to move? She's my best friend."
Oh
And
wow.
my parents were like, "Let's think about it." And like a week later, they're like, "Yeah, let's just do it. Whatever. You know, we already have 12 kids. What's more, right?" And so so you know, and so they did it, man, and they brought us in and we ended up moving in. I was at like my 11th birthday, and then we were adopted. I was adopted at 15. My sister was just about to be 18 going off to college. They adopted us, and we've been there, you know. And again, yeah, they did have, or they had 10 kids, 11 kids at the time, so we made 13. My dad was married 3 times, or Henry was married. My adopted dad was married 3 times before, so he had kids like kind of all over the place. But you know, for them it was like, oh
Papa
yeah,
was a
sure,
Rolling Stone.
yeah,
And
exactly.
and then he even adopted Stones.
Exactly, man. It's kind of funny too because my brother David is kind of taking that same path. It's very, very interesting. You have you know, family dynamics like that, but he's got 3 different mothers of children, and you know, I think he just had 2 more kids. He's like almost 40,
Wow.
so he just had 2 more kids, and so I think he's got 6 kids now, which
Wow.
is just wild to me. But yeah. Anyways,
So you were saying that the system has changed a lot from when you were in it. Has it changed for the good or for the bad?
so my understanding is, so I wrote a paper on this in college. It was like it was one of the papers I wrote for my to make sure I could, you know, pass that last level of English or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was all about how what the foster system was and how it's changed. And so they don't do that 6 month thing anymore, right?
Good. Good.
But
Good.
unfortunately, there's still a lot less parents of people who want to foster.
Yeah.
You know, so there's still a lot more group homes, but they did change that portion of it. I think the saddest thing to me that I read and really kind of motivated me to actually finish school, even though I don't believe that college is really the place for everybody. I just disagree with that kind of, you know, inclination that the world kind of puts on us. But for me, it was, I read this statistic that said 30% of foster kids don't graduate high school, right?
30%.
Yeah, 30% of
Mm.
foster kids don't grad, or maybe it was 30% do, one of those two, which is even worse, right? But if it's
Oh,
30% of people don't, no, it was 30%. And this is obviously over some time frame. Maybe this was I think it was the 2000s. 30% graduate high school, only 30%. 30% of them go off to a 4 year college, but it was like only 3% of them actually get a degree.
jeez.
So it was like
Wow.
a higher degree, like a bachelor's. So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
I don't remember the statistic on associates or, you know, technical degrees, but you know, they were doing the study on a 4 year college,
Wow.
and I was like,
Wow.
man, that is wild to me, and I get it. I can see it, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you
There's
lived through it.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, you were 18, you aged out of the system. They like basically kick you out and send you on your way. Nowadays, they have programs where you can still stay with the family till you're 21, or obviously if you move out, then they help you get jobs and they help you go in school and they help you get an apartment in certain areas and stuff. And so they have updated it in those ways. I don't think that was really around. I couldn't tell you. I was adopted at 15, and I did end up moving out at 18, but that wasn't because I was aged out or anything. Just kind of is what it was. But yeah, I mean, it's changed a bit for the better,
What's crazy
hopefully.
is, I know a few parents, well, either current parents or want to be parents that have attempted to go and foster a child, adopt a child. Um, I mean, I guess that's different, fostering and adoption, but I've heard both, and it seems like the process is not so easy. And so I
Mhm.
wonder, has that caused a shortage as well in people that want to do it? Because after a while you keep, you hear stories, you hear someone else say how long it took them, and you hear someone else talk about how the process was so painful, and they actually did see this kid, but then the things fell through, and
Yeah.
they got all excited and blah blah, got their hearts into it, and they don't want to do it anymore. Like, do you feel like the road to fostering a child has gotten any better, or do you think that that has any effect on how many
Yeah.
people that actually want to be foster parents?
Yeah, from my understanding, it's kind of a county specific thing, and some counties are a lot easier than others. Like, so they'll loosen the standards if there's like a serious, you know, inundation of children that need to be placed, and that burden is put on the county until they can figure that, and it always is put on the state. But so I would imagine it's more county specific still at this point.
Hmm.
But I do know for adopting, I mean, it's a pretty rigorous, you know, system that they put
Yeah,
people through.
yeah,
I mean, and rightfully so. I mean, foster in one way probably should have that, but at the same time, if you have it too strict, then or too difficult, then how are you going to get kids placed into a home where they're at least going to have a roof over the head at the very least, and some food, and the ability to go to school. But when it comes to adopting, you're basically saying, hey, this is my child. I mean, you get a birth certificate that said you had, right? So
gotcha.
you're
See,
taking you're
go ahead.
no, so you're taking them on. And so
Yeah,
I do believe that that should be a fairly stringent process.
yeah,
Because if you really want it, you'll go through it. But the foster side of it is it can be more of a, because they get paid, to house the children. And so it could be a little bit more about money than it is about taking care. And obviously, money helps, right? When you have a child, you don't have to be necessarily taking kids in and all out of your pocket. You'd have to have a pretty good income for that. But
yeah.
at the same time, kids need to be placed. So they gotta. I think they just try to find that balance.
Okay, so yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm misremembering uh the people that I knew trying to get a child. Maybe they were all more on the adoption side. I know I remember people on the adoption side. I know I have friends who were in the foster system, or their parents actually had a lot of foster kids while they were a kid. So they were used to being in a house with different kids all the time
Yeah,
because their biological parent was also fostering other kids. And so maybe
yeah,
I'm just misremembering the process, and the
yeah.
the road to fostering is a lot easier. So then if it's not that, and it's not so much of an arduous process, then I wonder what else it is, as far as
Yeah.
people, the willingness, the desire. I know there's money to be made, but even outside of that, people just having the heart to do it, or the desire. I wonder.
I think foster kids can be tough kids.
Mm,
They've gone through all different types of abuses. Some of it is like very scarring on them, and they just aren't known, right? Uh, to be, I'm not saying they're not good children or what it is, but they've gone through things that a normal person just doesn't have to deal with. And so they protect themselves in ways. And by protecting themselves, they react to things certainly. in different ways. So,
Right.
um, and it's like for me, when I was a kid, I for some reason I always had this feeling like I wasn't gonna have enough food, and so I'd hide it under my pillow, and and then I always have food, and that was the case when I was younger. Like we always had problems with food, but I carried that on until I was like probably 10. It took me years to get rid of
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
And so there's other thing, that was one thing for me,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
there's other things for other people, and the post-traumatic stress that it puts on them can be hard to deal with, I think, as a person. And
Yeah.
also too, we live life nowadays in this way that's just like, you do you, boo, and we don't have to necessarily care about somebody else. I
Yeah.
mean, birth rates in America across the globe are just absolutely plummeting, and people
Right.
don't necessarily want to have to take care of someone else if they can not take care of themselves, or we want to just go travel. And there's a lot of people my age who just get married. They just go travel the world, and like, you see them on Instagram just having a good old time.
Right.
You're at work
Living
taking
my
care of
best
your
life.
kids. Yeah,
Living
exactly.
my best life.
you
Uh,
know and
over
so
over to the chat, Mama Wolf said that adoption is also hard because the goal is always reunification with the
yeah,
birth parents. That's
yeah,
a great point.
good
That's a
point.
great point because that's obviously difficult. That almost feels like it puts the parents that adopt in the same position that you talked about a foster kid being when they never know when they're going to go to another home. It's
Yeah,
like you have to kind of live each day with this notion in the back of your head that like you never know when you're going to get that call and they say, hey, the mom's actually looking for them and wants to be with them, and
yeah,
you need to let
doing
them, you need to pack up.
doing much better, and it's ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
That,
and and, sh- and you're right. Yeah, they absolutely do that, for sure. That's a good point.
but you made that's uh to think about the trauma that they might have been through, to think about, I mean, it's hard for anybody else that hasn't been through that to even try to fathom like a new life twice a year, in so many
Yeah,
words. A new family, a new bed, a new, like, how do you get a foundation? How do you have the a good, spiritual foundation? How do your belief system is kind of all over the place. Your hobbies and things that you're interested in. You go to one house and they're all into sports and he's watching baseball all the time and you guys are playing catch outside. And next place he's a scientist and he hates sports and he thinks that's the most idiotic thing for people to sit around throwing a ball. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's true and that's true. I can imagine how that leaves someone with a certain level of PTSD.
yeah, man. I spent a lot of my life, feeling like I was just trying to survive a bit. So like a lot of these like little things, even things you just spoke on, were like almost, it was hard for me to even understand the joy in that, because I was always feeling like my peers are all ahead of me, and if I want to be even close to them, I have to absolutely just kill. And that was always really hard for me, and until I was probably like late high school. But I think, another thing is too, is even when I was at a foster family's house in Lathrop, when they would go on like a vacation, they would put me in. They would say, "Oh, this other person's gonna hold on to you for a couple weeks or whatever it is." And man, that post traumatic would come back. I'd be like in there in this room in this weird house, just like, oh, this is so creepy. Like
Wow.
so that feeling kind of sweeps over you. Just so
Yeah.
those things hang on to you, especially as a kid. It's like little things like my daughter now.
Hmm.
When she was a baby, I was washing her in the bath,
Yeah.
and I got water on her face, and she sucked water in her nose
Uh-huh.
and was just absolutely freaked out. And she, to this day, does not like water in her face. And I know it's specifically because of what
You
I
know the
did. And
moment, right?
I know the
You
moment.
know the moment.
Yeah. And it freaked her out, it freaked me out. But now she's the same thing. Face, she will not put her face in water for any respect. And the kids hold on to that. Just, I mean, that's a small example, but kids hold on to stuff like that through their life, and they got to work through it. Just to feel like they're probably a normal working member of society, I guess. I mean, that's how I felt, at least.
Right. No, that
But
that
yeah,
makes sense. But you made it, bro. You made it through
yeah,
through
yeah,
God's grace, you know what I
oh yeah,
mean? Through your perseverance and
yeah,
obviously also, having your sister around, and then this beautiful moment with Henry, and boom,
Yeah.
boom.
And they were the family. So I would go to church in pretty much every family. Like you're in Oakland. I mean, dude, you're going to like, Pentecostal churches, small little, everyone's there all Sunday type thing. So I'd go to churches like that, all the way to like, real quiet Baptist churches and all the way. But when I moved in with Henry and Sylvia, it was like another Pentecostal church. Because Henry, he's Filipino and Spanish. And so all of my brothers and sisters are like Filipino, Spanish, and white, basically. So we're just all mixed. Obviously, I'm just white, but the good thing was with that was they took us to a church, and we had community in the church, and we knew everybody, and it was a time to like kind of rejoice and be joyful there, and it was just a good group of people to be around. That as I started getting older, I used to think, I never really was one into church for a while. And that was because I was like, oh, I know what you do when you're not at church. You know what I mean? Like you're here, you're one way, but I know you. At least I don't hide it, type thing.
Right. That's a fact.
And then I realized later on that, it's really about you and your relationship than how everyone else's
Right.
relationship is, right? Is that why you worry about his speck when you have a log in your eye type thing?
There you go.
And and I started realizing that as I got older, and it took me a long time. I mean, it took me till I was basically with Letty, my wife, not married at the time, but still dating. And she started taking me to church and stuff. And I was like always grumbling about it. I was like, oh, you're going to wake me up this early on a Sunday, And then I started getting really into it. And I was like, man, it's so crazy to think about where I've been to where I've come, and all the things that God put in place for us. Even though some of them were tough, some of them were hard, there was all these valleys and all these peaks, right? Some things were great.
Of course.
From getting from there to where we are now, me, my wife, and children and stuff, it's all been by the grace of God. And I have to give him all of the grace for that, or all of the love for that, because I didn't do any of this on my own, that's for sure. Even though at times I felt like it was.
Preach,
so.
preach, young James. I'm gonna show you something. I know you don't know this this video, but ironically, I had a song that I did, and I did a whole video too and whatnot. And I said, ironically, the premise behind the song was that this kid lives in a foster home.
Oh wow.
And the idea, I'm just gonna play maybe like the second verse or something, but the idea was we had a few mass school shootings, and every time there was a school shooting, I noticed that the focus was the demonizing the kid. It was always, what did he listen to? Oh, he listened to this kind of music. He listened to rock music. He listened to goth music. He listened to rap music. He played Tom Clancy war games. He liked shooting it. Like, it was always that. And I'm like, man, no one's really like, I'm not saying none of that is valid to look at, but no one is thinking of, well, what is the story that leads a kid there? Yeah. Well, what's the background of this kid? And so I wrote this song. I just want you to hear a verse from it, and tell me what you think.
See is negative energy as the sinner deceiving me. Somebody tell me, what can this be? Explain to me, are my eyes deceiving me? Cause all I see is.
Hold on. I want to play the second verse. Hold on.
So wrong.
Right there.
Life feels so wrong. It's getting late. I need some rest. I turned 15 today, but tomorrow will be the best. Why you ask? They don't deserve me. It's almost midnight. No one has said happy birthday. The oh so perfect Mr. and Mrs. Stevenson, or Stevens, or whatever, reminded me they don't need a son, but they don't know that tomorrow they will grieve for one. Future PTA meetings, there'll be no need for one. Oh yeah, I got a foster home, but this is not a home. I've been knocking on their door, but I can't find a home. Love is something that I can't even find alone. They say it's all all timing, well, my lifetime is wrong. So it's better if I'm gone. Anyway, no one will miss me, not even classmates. They just harass and diss me. They think it's so funny when they all call me crispy, crunchity coon Chrissy. They don't know how pissed that gets me.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but your words can take my life. Don't take my life. Don't take my life. What do you do when everything you're doing makes you not wanna go on? And life feels so wrong. Life feels so wrong.
Yeah, man.
All right.
That's a good song.
Thank you, bro.
I gotta hear that like in, you know, like from my phone or something. It's on this other side, so you know, the
Yeah.
sound's always off. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
man, that's good. I think
But like
See,
I've always when I'm doing character songs like that I didn't live, my worry is like I don't have anyone to talk to get a complete perspective of this character, and I never want to do the character any injustice. I don't want to tell the story wrong, you know, trying to be a voice for them and then messing it up. So
yeah.
did you know, at least did it feel truthful, or did it kind of feel like, nah, that's not how it would really be? Because I definitely didn't get that 6-month thing. That would have been definitely in the song had
Yeah.
I known you at the time, because that's so relevant.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think you hit it on the head for a lot of kids though, which is crazy. You know, I mean, some kids go in there, they don't have any other family. You know, they're just in there. They don't. I mean, maybe they've heard about them or whatever, and the people that they're with are just kind of like they're there but they're not type situation. And you know, there's I think you deal with a lot of stuff when you're young, a lot of things that you cannot really deal with on your own.
Yeah.
And those feelings come up, especially when you're younger, you know. So you hit it on the head, I think, for a lot of people I knew. Luckily for me, I had my sister, and I actually knew my real aunt, my grandma, and uncle and stuff, you know, because my parents kind of had moved. My mom and her boyfriend were drug addicts, and they had moved. They like basically displaced themselves from that whole side of the family.
Oh wow.
So they would come and see us, you know, but there were kids I knew that they were never going to find out who their real parents were, you know. And
yo, James, that is interesting. I've never thought about that question. Like, what about the rest of your family? And you're saying they would come and visit. Like, now, did they come and visit you while you were in foster homes, or they came and visited you when you were with your adopted parents?
No, well, both, but they would come visit in foster homes. So the first foster home was considered an emergency foster home.
Okay.
And no one was allowed to see us there. It was more like, hey, my parents dropped us off at the sheriff's station there in Oakland, and then they basically took us into an emergency home, and then we were only supposed to be there for like a week until they found someone. We ended up being in there for a couple months.
Oh, wow.
And then they move you away, you know, to another home, and then from there, then yes, my grandma, she would come pick us up like for birthdays or for Christmas or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they'd take us over to their house because they lived in Hayward, you know.
Yeah.
And so they take us to their house and we do that. So they'd bring us back at the end of the day or whatever. Sometimes she'd just pick us up when we were in Lathrop, which is you know, hour and a half drive or so for her. She'd pick us up from her house. We'd just go down the street and eat lunch, you know, from time to time. My grandma would always do that, which was great. You know, so I'd see my uncles and my aunts and everything on like big holidays and stuff. So I still had some family ties there. So I did have some like familial love, you know, and made it easier.
So now I know as a kid, you know, whatever the reality that you're dealing with, that's just reality. If you broke, you broke. You don't know that you're broke. You just, this is life, right? If you got 3 brothers, you got 3 brothers. You don't really think about it like, you know, you don't compare it. So whether it was during that time or later, did you ever feel anything about your real family that no one came to get you out of that? Like, no, they came to see you, but knowing the condition, no one said, hey, come live with us. We're your family.
Yeah, man. There was a little bit for a while of that where it was like, how come I can't be with you, you know? And we did live with we lived with my uncle for a while. This is before we went into foster care. My mom had like dropped us off at our uncle's. We lived with our uncle and our cousins for a while. But what happened is my mom's boyfriend would threaten my family with like firearms and stuff.
Oh wow.
And it was like he was pretty wild, man. And he like came to my grandpa's work one day and like threatened him with a gun to his head, you know?
Oh
And so my grandparents were like, they got scared, you
yeah,
know,
of
and
course,
I didn't find this out until way later. They kept that a secret from me.
of course.
But you know, and there was some resentment there until I kind of found that stuff out. You start kind of building and figuring out, okay, I see. I mean,
Mm,
would I have done the same thing? I don't know. I putting myself in their shoes, there was times where I'd say I would never have done that. And then there's
yeah,
times when now that I have kids, it's like, you know, maybe I would have done that, you know,
yeah,
to
yeah,
keep my children safe and my family safe. And it's not their fault. It's just what am I supposed to do in that situation?
yeah,
So there was for a time definitely resentment, but you know, as I got older, I don't hold any of that resentment towards anybody. I've kind of been in that when I was 15 years old, I told I had to work through this for a while, but I told myself, hey, I can let my past dictate my future, or I can literally, you know, where the world's an open book and I get to write it. And how am I going to write that? Is it going to be all based on sadness and sorrow that I didn't get the life that I feel like I deserve? Or is it going to be something where like, hey, look, like, yeah, it sucks, but you know, you got this whole world in front of you that you get to decide on. And it's hard. It's hard for everybody. The Bible says that work is going to be hard because, you
yeah,
know,
man.
picking that
Yeah,
fruit off the tree, and that's okay. If everyone else, it has to be hard for everyone else, it's going to be hard for me too. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
just it took me years to I mean, that I made that conscious decision, but it took me years to kind of get past some of those, you know, heart hurts and you know, heartaches and whatnot. But
yeah.
well past it, man. Well
That's
past it
good.
now.
That's good that it hasn't jaded your view of them or stuck with you. I know God will usually remove that negative residue and allow you to just love, and that's awesome. I'm looking at the chat and just realized that Mama Wolf said the exact same question. I didn't even see this, but she said the exact same question was there ever any resentment, you know, towards those other family members for not taking you in? Because that stands out to those of us not in that position, especially as adults with children, and hearing what these children are going through, to even have the slightest idea that I have a family member, a nephew, a cousin who's from day to day doesn't know where they're going to live next, doesn't
Yeah,
know who they're going to be calling, whatever you call them, mom, dad, sir, miss. Like you really don't have a long background with anybody that you're living with at the time. It's hard to imagine not trying to rescue that kid, you know what I mean? And so,
yeah,
you make a great point that, like, hey, they got threatened, or they had to deal with other things, like they had to make probably tough decisions, and maybe it wasn't the easiest thing for them to do. So
yeah,
they tried to do their best and come around on holidays and maybe bring you a gift or something here or there, maybe help you get school clothes, whatever they did. But
yeah,
it's like, eh, what else can we do?
yeah, yeah. I
Had to be
mean,
tough.
you know, and people are in different situations. Like my aunt, my closest aunt, she just was financially never or whatever in a position to be able to take us in. She had a one room apartment forever, you know,
Mm,
and
yeah,
so there was just that type of situation too.
yeah,
Could she really take care of a child? It probably wasn't best if she did, to be honest with you. So,
right, right, right.
you know, and in some instances it was for the best. In other instances, it was like, hey, like we have to protect our family too, type of thing. And yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely went through some of those. I mean, there was times where like, because my mom told me when she dropped us off in at the sheriff's, she's like, I'm gonna come back for you, you know.
Oh
And so
wow.
we waited for like, I don't know how my sister took. I actually never asked her, but I know she said it because I remember it, and I just remember like for
Oh
years, like just
man,
waiting, and that's kind of where
man,
that
man,
shift
man.
came. You know, obviously I'd forgotten about it when I was
Yeah.
11, 12, 13, and then it got to that point where it's like I had forgotten about it so much. I just said, all right, this is
Wow.
obviously not going to go the way that I ever expected.
That's
So like,
heartbreaking.
how do you make that shift in your life? How do you make a good life for yourself and not letting this tear you down, tear you into
Wow.
pieces. And that was hard, but
Yeah,
you know,
that's
all
heartbreaking,
gone
man.
now.
Well, I
Yeah.
will say, whatever you did, whatever God did to you, you did it, because you
Yeah.
definitely turned your life around. You went from, I'm gonna be honest, like some of the most traumatic types of experiences that I've heard for a child to go through.
Yeah.
That may not sound like a big deal to maybe people without kids, or maybe the younger people listening to the podcast, but to jump from home to home to home, I didn't even realize it was like that. I knew that you kind of maybe might change homes a few times, but twice a year, and you couldn't do it more than 6 months, and like you said, in that particular program,
Yeah.
that's tough.
I think what's
That's
wild is my
tough.
sister moved, I want to say like a hefty amount of times. It was probably like in that, so we were separated
Right,
while we were in the Bay Area. And then when we
right.
moved into Families First, we were brought together, but that's when we were out in Lathrop. And I was probably at the time, I want to say 8 years
Mm,
old, maybe 9. I think I was 8. But for her over that 2-year period, I want to say she moved something like 9 times or something like that. Maybe it was 7, but still, it's like a crazy amount of times.
that's
And
a
I think
crazy
I
amount
moved.
of time.
I think I moved like 4 or 5. But I
That's
know hers was a
crazy.
lot more.
And you
So
have to be
yeah,
detached at that point. Like, you have to be like desensitized. You have to have like zero emotion at a certain point. It's just like, hey, where do I sleep? Hey,
yeah, yeah,
what's for dinner? Like,
yeah.
you
And
just kind of,
everyone's got,
especially if you have like what you said, it's in the back of your head that like, but my mom's coming back.
yeah, yeah.
But my mom's coming
This is
back.
temporary. Yeah, this is temporary. And as a kid, time takes a lot longer to get pass by.
Oh yeah.
But I think the crazy thing is too, another big thing was you move into these people's houses, they all have different rules. Like there's some
Right.
people who
Right.
like from listening to my sister, they were like, oh, they made me do all the chores. Like no other kids did the chores. I had to like be in
Oh,
bed at a specific time, and like it was kind of like that situation. Some even worse. But
right. And
and for
you're a kid. What are you gonna
yeah,
do? It's
and
not
I've
like you can
always
call
yeah,
somebody and tell them, hey, they're treating me wrong, blah,
yeah.
blah, blah.
And I've always not been a very observant person. I'm kind of like I live way forward in the future. I'm like, let's just get there. And who cares about all the mess next to us,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
So like my sister's not that way. So it really hit her, things like that hit her harder. And when
yeah,
I was put in situations like that, whatever, I'll do what you say. No big deal. I don't want to get in trouble. I just want to eat food, and like, when I get my free time, I want to be able to do what I do. So for me, it was a lot different. So I need to talk to her more about some of that stuff, but
yeah, get it out.
yeah, it's pretty wild.
Well, like I
It's
was
pretty wild.
saying, you definitely made the change and the shift. And so now you are James, the investment shark.
Yeah.
You had people that didn't necessarily invest into you properly when you were younger, but God invested in you.
Yeah,
And
man,
I know
that's for
you've
sure.
invested a lot into God, and I see the dividends greatly in your life, with your children, with your wife, with your living, your RVing, your rental properties. I mean,
Yeah.
the list goes on. So how does it feel as we get into your current day? How does it feel sometimes when you look back at where you were, and like what you said, you could have gone the good way or the bad way, and then you look at where you are now? Like, how does that feel?
That's amazing. I never thought I would have kids. I
Mm.
didn't even think, I never thought it was possible to get married. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh wow.
none of those things were like a part of my, I just didn't think that that was even a thing for me. I didn't think that that was going to be possible. I thought I was, I mean, honestly, there's that Jay-Z song, when I was born, I was sworn, when I was born, it was sworn I wasn't going to be,
Mm-hmm.
shit.
Yep.
And I remember hearing that as a kid, and I was like, man, maybe that's me. And I'd
Mm.
play that over and over and over in my head. But then there was like I said, at that point when I was 15, it kind of shifted.
Yeah.
And so moving forward into the future, I mean, it was always like I kind of had this like aching, like you're gonna do something with your life no matter what happens. So
Nice.
there's something in me that says like everything's going to be okay. But there's also that other side of me, like, and we all have it, that the angel and devil side. And
Yeah.
there's always something on your back just telling you you're not good enough. Whatever it is, whatever your story is, whatever you person yourself tells you,
Yeah.
everyone has it. It's all there.
Yeah.
And mine was like, you're not good enough. People don't like you. You're not worth it. Or like, you weren't born to be anything at all. So just give up, type thing. And so we all kind of have that. And so it took a long time to kind of get rid of that.
And did Henry help with that, or did you have that prior to Henry when you started feeling that sense of you, no matter what's going on, eventually I'm gonna do something?
I kind of always had that
Mm.
piece of it. My sister used to joke, and not joke, but I used to collect like money. Any money I'd see, I'd collect it, like coins, like pennies and quarter. And none of them had any value except for their face value, right? But
Yeah.
I would collect them for some reason.
Yeah.
And she used to always joke with me, like, oh, you used to say you collected money when you were younger, now look at you, right? But the funny thing is like,
it was meant to be.
yeah,
You couldn't
yeah,
stop it.
right.
You
So
could not stop this.
you look back but no, there was always this thing that kind of puts a drive in me.
Yeah.
I feel like I struggle with it too. Sometimes I'm like, I just want to be lazy, and other times I just want to get stuff done, so I have this weird balance. But they always had that thing that was telling me that I couldn't do something, and then sometimes I would do it in spite of that little voice, like, oh yeah, I can't do something, I'm gonna go do it, watch me.
Oh yeah.
And whether I fail or I win, and
That's
it was
the hip
always
hop
fine
in
with
you.
me.
That's the hip hop
Yeah.
in you.
Yeah, right. Like man, like hip hop is like fake it till you make it, or just like straight up speak things into existence.
Right. Fight and continue to fight for it. Yeah.
Continue to fight for it.
And that contrarianism where it's like, don't tell us we can't. Don't tell me this
Yeah.
isn't a real thing. Don't tell me I'm limited to this. I'll show you.
Yeah. Society puts these bars on us, and we're
Yeah.
like, no way, this is crazy. You don't have to live like this, right?
Not at all.
And so I just kind of kept pushing. And honestly, I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. I mean, I went to after high school, I got my drafting certificates. I was a computer-aided draftsman just to make money. I made fairly good money. I just hated it because I was there at 4 o'clock in the morning, falling asleep at my desk, for whatever 10 hours a day working. And so I ended up wanting to get into sales and learning all about sales and stuff. And so I did that, and I went and got some sales positions, and then finally wanted to start a business. And so me and I was working with my cousin to open a powder coating shop. We did that in Stockton for a while. And then 2008 it came, and we ended up closing the shop. And that's right around the time I went out to I was still in Manteca for about another year or so, kind of working just odd jobs. Ended up going back to school, and that's kind of when I got out to San Francisco is where things started to really kind of work for me, because I didn't graduate high school. I actually left high school because I was 18 before I turned or before high school. So the first day of senior year, I was already 18. So I signed myself out and I just left. I like moved out of my parents' house, like got an apartment. I ended up getting my GED like pretty soon after that. But I never really thought about, there's that same aching, like, oh, you're not worth it. You'll never go finish school or whatever it was. And so I just did it. And then something told me like, get back into school. So I moved out to San Francisco. My aunt had a house there, and she's like, hey, look, I got this. The whole under the house was like a separate unit. She's like, you can rent this from me and go to school. I was like, okay. And so I went to school, and that was probably the hardest time in my life to start, because I never really had like this set, I need to go to school and get this degree done. And it was like, I know it's going to be a long road and do it. And so I didn't have a lot of free time because I was working and going to school. Yeah. But during that time, I ended up getting a job at Morgan Stanley in San Francisco, 3rd floor at 101 California, which is actually the same exact floor it was Dean Witter originally, which was where, about that movie, Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah. Yeah.
With that guy worked in that office.
Wow.
And Morgan Stanley had bought it at some point, and it turned into Morgan Stanley Dean Witter when I was there. And then it was just Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney or something. And anyway, so I started working there as an intern, going to school. And it was just one of those things that I was like, oh, I actually kind of like this. I enjoy this. Like, let me learn more. you know, and I took that economics course and I was like, hey, I could do this. This is not that bad. And it was a long learning curve for it. You know, it took me about 5 years to really kind of get my feet out from under me
Wow.
when I was there. But then I said, eventually what I did is I left Morgan Stanley, and I've been an independent investment manager ever since. There's been good times and bad times, and you know some of the recent stories, but
Yep.
you know I'm back in a building mode where I had to start from scratch again for the most part, and it's been going good. But you know this business has been difficult, but it's
Yeah.
like it's something I understand, I get, and I offer a lot of value to my clients, you know,
Absolutely.
and I love it. That's the problem. There's times I hate it, don't get me wrong.
That's the problem.
It's not really like I don't, it's not that it's not a stressful job. I mean, anything in the finance world is probably one of the most stressful jobs that you can have outside of, I don't know, maybe air traffic controller. I mean, it's on the top of the list.
Hmm.
And it's been this way for me, is like you go through these times of high stress and you know do it because you're always doing it the way somebody else wants you to do it. That's really what causes the stress. So I got myself in this position now where I can do it the way that I want to do it. I want to build this business. So the firm is called Olivia Wealth Management. We're building it the way we want to do it. It's not based off of grow at all costs, right? This is based off of how are my clients, how can I treat them the best, and how can we grow together for the whole long haul, long haul, and we can have a great relationship, you know, to the point of, you know, who my children are, I know who your children are, we know each
Yeah.
other to an increasingly more exponentially more, you know, I guess intimate level could be the word, even though it may not be
Yeah.
the right one.
Yeah.
But
No, I get it.
and I want to do it in a way where I know everything about you in your financial life per se, and where we can help you make the best decisions and
Mhm.
even more than that, right? So
So I do want to get into kind of coming back a little bit to someone who's not there already, like someone who maybe let's talk about some of the opening steps to someone who wants to start building an investment portfolio, wants to diversify their investments, but maybe they haven't started at all.
yeah,
Maybe they have a 401k, maybe they don't even have that.
yeah,
But before we talk about that, a story popped into my head that I have to share because we've been talking a lot about a traumatic childhood in so many words. And then you said you wanted to get into sales.
yeah,
Okay, so Erica and I are watching a show the other day. This is just so funny, and hopefully it's not one of those I guess you had to be there stories and everybody's like, oh, that was a dud.
yeah,
So we're watching this show, and basically this kid has a life of crime, right? He's stealing cars from car dealerships, he's stealing jewels out of mansions, he's sticking up people by gunpoint, just traumatic life. There's one point where he commits a crime. He's told with his plea bargain he would get a maximum of 4.5 years, which in his head he's like, I have no clue how I'm gonna do this. Like, how am I gonna survive 4.5
mhm,
years? After the judge looks at his paperwork and looks at the aggravating circumstances, he decides to give him 12 years.
ooh,
What a gut punch, right?
yeah,
He, long story short, he gets out, he goes back, he gets out again, and he decides to go into sales. Here's where the story takes an interesting turn, and what's, I guess, the humorous part to us, because this entire show, we were like, man, this person's like, we're feeling sorry for him in so many words. Like, you know, he didn't have the proper foundation growing up, didn't really have parents around. Next thing you know, he's in a life of crime and drugs and alcohol. And when they do try to connect with him, like it's just too late. And now he's in the prison system, and you know, he's just losing years and years and years of his life. Fast forward to now, he's talking about making tens of thousands of dollars every month at this sorry, at this car dealership selling exotic cars. You still there, right?
yeah. I mean,
He's selling exotic cars. And so we go from feeling sorry for this guy to being almost like, how do we do what he's doing?
yeah,
I can't think the last time I was making tens of thousands of dollars every single month. And
Yeah.
so when you said I really wanted to go into sales, I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
Another person that jumps into sales and then, well, boom,
Yeah.
they just blow up.
Yeah. Fortunately, it was not like that for me. It's always kind of been a long road. And I think a lot of that was because, I was in school, so a lot was taking
Yeah.
my time away.
Right.
And so, for me, it was it was not like that. But at the same time, I think interesting like that show is like the people with some of the hardest backgrounds actually tend to do well in business. It's
That
like
is
that.
so true. That's so
It's like
true.
that guy in high school where everyone thought he was going to be just like sit on the couch loser. You go back in your high school reunion and this dude owns like half the town or something, or whatever.
Right. You're like, how did this happen?
It's just that age old story. They like to exist outside of the traditional system.
Yeah.
And they thrive in it, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't, but that's okay too. But at the same time, I think when you're put in those positions, sometimes you kind of like push yourself through. And so from my experience, it wasn't like that. Go from 0 to 100 that fast.
Right.
And
for most of us, it wasn't.
For most of us, yeah. And I've learned a lot over that time. But my whole thing was I always more focused on growing. I always wanted to grow something that I believed in, that people that I was with believed in. It was so true and so real that they couldn't, that they trusted it.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to believe in myself for that. And I think was really, really my issue. Are people, how are people going to trust and believe in somebody who like isn't really worth it,
Oh yeah.
Which is just my own story.
Yeah.
It's just my own story within myself. And it took me a while to work through that, but
to find out nobody knows.
Yeah. To find out.
Nobody knows. And they're treating you the way you basically, in so many words, tell them to treat you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I always wanted to make sure no matter what, it's going to be done 100%. Right.
Yeah.
That's why I went what's considered to be a registered investment advisor. And that's you're considered to be a fiduciary, meaning if you don't do what's in your client's best interest, people are going to know, you're going to find out, and you're going to get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And that's why I left the broker dealer side, because they go by what's called, not best interest, but they go by what's called suitability. Oh, this is suitable. It's like kind of saying, it's suitable enough,
Yeah, right.
Kind of checks these boxes, which is right in his range, so we can sell him this product. And I didn't really like that after I got into the business enough. So I said, hey, look, I kind of want to be more of a fiduciary, where it's like, hey, I need to know all this about you so I can give you the best information, right? The best information in gets us the best information out.
That makes
sense. I wanted to put myself in that position. And so I did, and I went and helped build a registered investment advisory practice with a friend of mine who we split last June. And now I'm starting this one, and this one is with my family. It's with my wife. We both, just me and her. We do have, relationship with larger institutions to help us with certain things, but we're going to do it the way that we want to do, as I was mentioned before. But I know you were saying something about talking about individuals who haven't invested before and want to get started.
Let's start there. Like, imagine we do have a listener that saw the investment shark. Oftentimes when people start talking about investments or finances or things, they start from a place of you already have something. They start from like all right, so if you have, let's say $20,000, like, and the person listening is like, well, I'm out.
Yeah.
You've already left me. Like, I'm out. I don't have 20,000. So imagine, you're talking to, matter of fact, let's say you're talking to a younger James.
Yeah.
A younger James, somewhere between 15 and 18, and he's changing his life. He's starting to really see himself doing something one day. He keeps hearing invest your money. He doesn't really have a whole lot yet, but what kind of yellow brick road, if you will, or would you give him to kind of begin, and which direction should he go in starting to build his portfolio?
Yeah, man. Well, number one, start. The younger, the better. Even if it's $2 a month, or $1 a week or something crazy. And as a matter of fact, there are apps out there to help you, right? So you have Acorns is one of them, right? And Acorns, what that does is you can hook it up to your credit cards, you can hook it up to your bank account, you can hook it up to pretty much anything you spend money on.
Yeah.
And whatever you spend money on, say it's $1.50, it'll round up that 50 cents and send it right to that account. And you can add more. You can tell it, hey, I want to take out $100 a month or $200 a month or whatever. But what it does is essentially what's called dollar cost averaging. So it's saying on this day, every single month, we're going to round up they call them roundups, round up whatever change you had from all those last transactions for the week, and we're going to put it in this investment mix that we chose for you. And they give you a mix, right? So from being completely conservative all the way to being extremely aggressive. And if you're younger, obviously being aggressive may make the most sense for you. If you're older, maybe not as aggressive, or if you don't need the money for a long time, maybe you do want to be aggressive. Whatever you can help. Anyone can help you make that decision, maybe yourself or any other advisor. But your goal is just to be consistent, and that consistency means, or what I was talking about before was dollar cost averaging, means the market's going to go up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. It's just kind of the way it works. And what you're doing is as the market's going up, you're adding to it every single month. And as it comes down, you're adding it to it at a lower price, right? So you're always adding to it at what's called averaging. You're averaging up. And over time, your cost, what you paid for it, will always be lower than your value. It'll take some time to get there, but even if you go through difficult markets, your cost is always going to be lower than your value. It's like if you take the stock market from 2001 at the top to 2008 at the top, you had this kind of like V, right? So the market topped here, 8 years later, it topped again and then came down again. If you dollar cost averaged over that time period, your investment gains weren't zero because you didn't put everything in at the top and just wait for it to come back. You were buying at different prices all the way along that curve for 8 years, and dividends were paid and all that type of stuff. I think the most important thing is just pick to start. Just start. If it's $1 or $2 or $5 or $10, or maybe you have 100 or 200, right? Because over time that will grow. And then when you're dollar cost averaging, you're not worried about what the market does because you're going to be buying when it's going down, right? You're not going to be like, oh, I want to sell everything, and because the market's going to go down. Now, maybe if you have a few $1 million, or $1 million or 100,000, 200,000, whatever, you have a little bit more chunk of change, then you can get a little bit more on that, what's called tactical investing side, where you say, hey, look, I want to make a different investment decision now because I think, I don't know, copper's falling. So, the economy is going to do bad. I want to get out of, equity markets or whatever it may be. And you decide to make that. But to start, dollar cost averaging in some type of an app like that, or even on Charles Schwab, or, whatever it is on any type of investment platform would make the most sense.
Okay, so because we've talked, I know what dollar cost averaging means, but to someone listening, break that down.
Yeah. So if you're say we're just talking about the S&P 5, you're going to buy S&P 500 ETF, right? Which is it's a makeup of what the S&P 500 is in a way that you can buy it, and that's all you're buying. Just say, for instance, and at this point, say it's $1. Right. And obviously we all know that it's not $1 right now, but let's just say in this case, it's $1 per share today. And every single month on the first of the month, you're going to make a $1 deposit. So you're going to be able to buy one share on the first of the month, every single month, because it's $1. But hey, at the first of next month, maybe it's only 75 cents. So now your $1 is buying you 1.25 shares. So now with your $2, you actually own 2.25, right, shares. Then it goes up to $1.25. Now you're only spending $1, so you can only buy 3/4 of a share. And there's programs out there that can help you buy 3/4 of a share nowadays. Used to not be the case. But say, for instance, you're always going to take that amount and you're buying it at different prices as the stock market's going up. Over time, what's going to happen with dividends, right? Because it pays dividends, also reinvesting those dividends over time. What will happen is over that time period, your investment gains will be much more astute than if you were to just put $1 amount in and watch it grow. And I could show that in a presentation in a way at some point or whatever, just to show you. But your goal is you're putting money in the same amount. If not, I mean, you can pick whatever dollar amount. As time goes, you can move that dollar amount higher. But you're picking the same dollar amount with the same frequency. So whether it's once a month, every week, every 2 weeks, you're trying to pick those same exact dates. Just on the 15th and the 1st, I'm putting $100 in the S&P 500 or whatever you decide.
Got it.
Dollar cost averaging, that's what that is.
Okay. And now the S&P 500.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. So that's 500 of.
I'm trying to make it like just in case. You may have like a 15-year-old that's watching it, and so certain terms that we say so often, we kind of just assume everybody knows, but they might be like, well, what is that? How do I invest in the S&P? Is Acorn the S&P? Because he said do Acorn, so is Acorn the S&P 500? Or, you know what I mean? They might get confused. So what is the S&P 500?
Yeah. So Acorns is the app, right? And I'm plugging Acorns. There's other ones out there, but I use Acorns myself, which is why I'm plugging that. But the S&P 5 Acorns is the app. The S&P 500 would be like basically buying a stock, right? Or the SPY would be like buying a stock on the exchange, right? So the S&P 500 is an index. You used to not be able to invest in it until the 90s when they created ETFs. But all it is it's a calculation of mathematics that derives the index called the S&P 500, which is 503 of the largest companies in the US stock market. And all that is just supposed to represent a good basket of companies. Now, we also have the NASDAQ, which is the NASDAQ 100 of the largest companies, right, on the NASDAQ. And then you have the Dow Jones, which is 30 of the, they choose what go into these indexes, but they're just indexes of investments, right? So there's only 30 in the NASDAQ. I think there's 30 in the Dow Jones, 102 or 3 in the NASDAQ, and maybe 503 in the S&P 500. That's why it's called the S&P 500. And it's just really to kind of show you how the market's moving. Now, there are some caveats to that, which we don't have to get into now, but because it gets really into the weeds. But all it is an index. You used to not be able to buy the index. It used to be something that we'd look at and we all just buy individual stocks, in the 60s and 70s and 80s. But as we got closer to the point where technology started to advance, people created what's called an exchange traded fund, or a fund in general, where then now they would try and copy that index as best they can, because it's just a mathematical calculation. They let you know what the mathematics are. So people come and say, hey, look, we're going to make the same mathematical calculation. We're going to buy these same exact companies in the same weights that the index has. Now people can invest in them, right? And so that's pretty much all that is. And you're getting just a broad diversification of the 500 largest companies by buying the S&P 500. So the market goes up, which when I say the market, maybe I'm referring to the S&P 500 in this case. Market goes up, you go up. Market goes down, you go down. So instead of saying I live and die and buying one particular company or 2 or 5 or 10, which is totally possible to do, but instead of trying to pick stocks when you're new, it may be best to just get broad diversification. Just buy that. You're going to do what the market does, and it's easier.
All right. And one more term I was going. An ETF.
ETF is an exchange traded fund. It's a basket of companies that they put together in one wrapper, essentially. So say, for instance, you wanted to buy the S&P 500. You can't buy the index you see kind of trading on CNBC. That's just the S&P 500 index, but you can buy SPY or VOO or whoever. There's lots of different companies out there that have a S&P 500 type ETF, and you can buy that. And all it is a basket of all those companies. Now there's different ones out there too. So you can buy international. You can buy the FTSE index essentially in an ETF. You could buy, maybe you just want to buy all rare earth metals. They have an ETF for that. You can buy all the companies that deal with rare earth metals and buy that ETF, and all you're getting is that subsector, right? So that's what an ETF is. It's just basically a wrapper around a basket of stocks. And instead of buying each one of those individually, you just buy the ETF and you own all of those.
All right. So hopefully everybody heard that, a little breakdown of some of the terminology as well as the direction. Just start. Don't overthink it. You will learn through the process. I had James talk about some of the terms, but really you didn't even need to know that. And right now we won't plug that app anymore just because we set it up. We will say that there are investment apps out there. Just look at search investment apps, or just search investment in your apps in your app store, and they will lead you. Look at some reviews, pick the one that makes the most sense to you, and just start $1, $2, $3. The overwhelming common thread that I'm noticing, whether we've talked about learning how to play the guitar and being a great band member, or investments, or martial arts, there's a single word that has been the common thread through all of that, and that is consistency. Stay consistent. Decide, make your decision, get in, start, and then be consistent. That's what separates the man from the boys, if you will, is
Right.
the longevity, the consistency. Okay, so that is like a beginning investor. I want to shift to maybe more of a medium, or the next level, whatever that will be called, of investor. Let's just go like let's go someone who's been investing, a little bit. They already know about these apps. They've been kind of doing that. Maybe they have a Roth IRA, or whatever, but they kind of want to go to the next level. Maybe they have somewhere between $1,000 and $5,000 to invest.
Yeah.
How do you direct them?
Yeah, I mean, so before we were talking about just buying one ETF. I think at this point, when you have a little bit more money, you have the ability to diversify, right? And in that diversification, you can take on a little bit more risk if you so decide. That little bit more risk may be considered cryptocurrencies, or maybe you're deciding that you want to, right now, you think AI is hot and you want to buy AI or whatever it is. That's totally okay to do. Now, it's all about how you weight that in the portfolio, because the higher weighting that you give to one of those segments is going to have your portfolio moving in general in the direction of that, right? So the lower weighting you give it, you're still taking on a little bit more risk. If it succeeds, you do well. If it doesn't succeed, it's not going to put you in the poorhouse, right? If you diversify correctly. So at this point, when you have a little bit more money, your goal is to diversify your core positions. We'll just say that's the bulk of your money, essentially. Let's just make it easy to understand.
Yeah.
Your core positions, you want to diversify across the globe, I would say, right? So get the S&P 500, maybe buy some international, and then, have some fixed income in your portfolio. Obviously fixed income hasn't done extremely well over the last 2 years, but that could change here fairly soon. So you want to get some fixed income.
Now you said across the globe. Are we buying North Korean ETFs, or?
Yeah. So those don't exist, but emerging markets, right, is the BRICS nations, right? So you have Brazil, Russia, India, China, plus, right? There's some other ones that are those are considered to be emerging markets. And then you have your developed markets, right? So you have like Europe, and so you can purchase some weighting between the two. So say if you had $5,000, I'd put the bulk of my money in the S&P 500. Maybe it's $1,200 or $1,500 in there, and then split $1,000 between emerging markets and European developed markets. And then below that, I'd put another portion into fixed income. Say that's, I don't know, another $2,000. How much is that? That's
you have 500 left.
500. So the last 500, maybe I want to buy my AI, right? Maybe I want to buy Palantir or something, an individual company, PLTR. Maybe I wanted to add that to the portfolio.
Yeah.
Maybe
actually,
now
you have 1,500 left.
1,500. Okay.
Because you said 1,500 into the S&P, then
3,500.
1,000 you split into emerging
and
markets, emerging and what was the other word?
Merging in international
developed.
Developed markets, yeah.
And
then the last chunk you have, maybe you split it between a few things, right? Instead of buying one individual stock, maybe you're splitting it between 5 different companies. Like, so say you like something in the driverless car space, plus you like AI, right? So you can get access to that in an ETF, where they have just focused on artificial intelligence, and as well, CARZ, which is a ticker for an ETF that has the kind of the driverless car stuff going on. Maybe you split between those two. So then now you have what's called you have your core, and then you have what's called your satellite, right? Your satellite's always a lot smaller, and those are going to be kind of more drilled down individual pieces.
Gotcha.
And then you consistently keep doing your $100 every month or whatever, 2 weeks, whatever, or however much you're putting into it, but you just consistently keep doing that into that asset allocation, that weighting of everything,
Yeah.
and just keep going. And if something's not working in 6 months to a year, and you're not super excited about it, you can make a change. But the goal is to consistently keep doing
Consistency once again.
consistency.
Okay, and then the last one I'll ask is, now let's say someone that things have they're going great.
Yeah.
They are going great. They look up, they bringing in $30,000 a month. I mean, they're trying to figure out. I got like 10 grand of this. That if I could invest the right way, like once this thing is over, I might be set for life.
Yeah.
10,000 plus per month. How do you direct that person?
Yeah, at that point, I mean, you're talking about more than just investments. You're talking about financial planning. So you want to make sure that you're not only obviously taking that capital you have and allocating it efficiently. You want to make sure that you're helping save yourself from taxes, right?
Yeah.
So what type of an investment vehicle are you putting in to help you with that taxes? We also want to talk about your income. We want to talk about at some point, if you're really coining money, you might need to get some and you have a family and all that stuff. Maybe you need some life insurance. And some products of life insurance are actually pretty good nowadays. I mean, you could store a whole bunch of money into them, and it could be like a tax deferred haven for you, right?
Yeah.
So we just want to look at very many different facets of your life. Like, what are your goals from now until retirement? And then what are your goals from retirement and beyond? And how do we get you from where you're at right now to those places? And that's where the financial planning comes in. And once you're done with that financial planning side of it, that the investments, once we're doing financial planning, it'll tell us exactly how to invest your money through that. But in those cases, when you have a little bit more money, what you're trying to do is allocate capital efficiently, save from taxes, and just make sure we're making the smartest moves with your money for the future. And that's really all what financial planning does. But in those respects, much would not change from the way that you invest from where you're in that middle tier that we just talked about to the higher tier. But now you're talking about a holistic view of your finances,
Right.
from budgeting, taxes, to the point where our financial planning software can straight up tell you, as long as we know with fair accuracy what your income's going to be, it'll tell you exactly what your taxes you're going to owe in that year based off of some of the strategies that we decide to tell you, or decide to not tell you, but at least recommend, I'd say.
Yeah.
And so at that point you're expanding your financial goals. You need to expand into a little bit more robust type of a financial planning system as well.
Well, as promised, everyone, James the Investment Shark can take anyone, whether you got 10 grand per month to invest, whether you're down to $1 to invest. Number one, he says, make sure you start. Number two is be consistent. And three, varies because there's a different strategy depending on where you are financially. But the number one thing, if you're thinking of investing your money, which is a smart thing to do, we don't always think so, especially when we get our first job and you get your check and it's $180 or $230. You're not thinking, I should invest this for when I'm 40. I get it. Like we all get it. We've all been there. None of us talked about any of this stuff, when we were younger. We get it. However, if you talk to us, if you talk to any adult that you know that's in your world, a neighbor, co-worker, family member, ask them, do you wish you had started investing earlier? And I bet you 100% of them, no matter where they are in their life, will say yes.
Yeah,
will say yes. And so that says a lot.
Absolutely. Maybe next time when we get on here, I'll show you some maybe more in-depth stuff that shows the difference of investing from 18 till the age of say 60 or 50. We'll even get shorter. Let's say 45. Say from 18 to 45 versus if you started in the 30s, right? And how much more you have to save at 35 to get to 45 versus how much you would have to save starting at 18. It's drastically different.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking thousands of dollars difference per month that you'd have to save at the age of 35 to 45 to have the same exact number as somebody who started at 18. 45. Wow.
Well, there you have it. There's our teaser for when James returns to the Pod is Good podcast. Bro, it has been great having you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your wisdom. We appreciate it, man. We
No, thank
appreciate
you.
it. Tell the
I
family we said hello.
will do. Yeah, absolutely, man. This has been great. This is fun to do. So anytime.
No doubt. We'll definitely have you back. Got to. We got to talk more about this list, man. I mean, I felt like I might have cut you off at the knees once you told me your sixth pick was Big L. I mean, we went
Yeah.
from I keep forgetting who was number 2. I know Nas was number 1. I know Jay was number 3. I know Pac was number 4. Eminem was number 5. Big L was number 6. Who was 2?
Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar. How did I forget Kendrick?
Probably one of the newer artists that made
Yeah.
the list.
Yeah. But cut from the same cloth.
Yeah,
Cut from the same cloth. Y'all can hear it. You know what James the Investment Shark vibes with. Y'all get it. Y'all get it. So if anybody wanted to contact you to bring you in as maybe their financial advisor, how would they reach you?
Oh yeah. Anybody can reach me straight from my website. It's www.olivia OLIVIA WM, as if you're spelling wealth management, so WM.com. OliviaWM.com. It's named after my daughter. You have all my contact information there, my email, phone number. You can even just set a time directly right on my calendar to chat if you want. But yeah, anytime. I'm more than happy to help. Even if people just have simple questions, more than happy to help with that too.
Reach out to him, y'all. This is a good man, a man of God, a family man. And as you can tell and hear, he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
He knows his stuff. Anytime I got a question, we on the phone because I know who knows it. By the time I think of the question, he's probably already been researching that topic, that new faction of investment for the past 6 months. So why waste my time? You know what I mean? So save yourself some time, contact James and follow the show. Subscribe if you enjoy the content. I appreciate everybody being here. This has been episode 12 of the Pod is Good podcast. I did not tell you before we got on, but this is how this is our callback. So I'm going to say Pod is Good. You say all the time. I'll say all the time, and you say Pod is Good.
All right.
Got it? All right.
Yeah, got it.
Pod is good.
All the time.
And all the time.
Pod is good.
Thank you, sir. It's your man, Cashmere, California. We'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace out.